Welcome to the Phoenix House Seminar Series. My name is Caitlin Payne, and I am an intern of Neuroscience. Today, our seminar topic is an introduction to neuroscience, the first video in a 4-part series on the neuroscience of addiction. Every now and then, we will pause this video and your group facilitator will process some of the information we discussed with you. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so we want to encourage you to participate. In this video, we will address the parts of the brain associated with reward and drug abuse, how the brain communicates by using electrical and chemical signals, and the different types of neurotransmitters associated with drugs of abuse. This is the human brain. It acts as the command center for the central nervous system. It controls and regulates everything from muscle movement, emotions, heart and respiration rate, language, and much, much more. In the last few decades, scientists have made tremendous advances in understanding how the brain operates. The study of the nervous system, known as neuroscience, is an exploding field that offers us better insight into the way we act, feel, and think the way that we do. Addiction, previously thought of as a character flaw or social dysfunction, is now understood to be a complex brain disorder that interferes with normal neural function. Before we can discuss how drugs alter the brain, we must first understand how the brain normally works in a healthy adult. Different regions of the brain are responsible for particular tasks. For example, there is a region committed to visual processing, a region devoted to encoding memories, and a region in charge of the fight or flight response when we experience fear. In this video, we will focus on the regions involved in reward-seeking behaviors. The nucleus accumbens, which plays a major role in motivation, reward, and learning. The prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making, planning, attention, motivation, personality, and social behavior. And the ventral tegmental area, known as the VTA, which is the origin of dopamine cells. The brain is made up of a particular type of cell called a neuron. Neurons facilitate communication between different parts of the brain. These cells can be very long, up to 3 feet long in fact, and can connect regions that are seemingly very far apart. When a neuron is stimulated to a certain threshold, it sends an electrical signal that travels from one end of the neuron to the other. In this way, the brain is a complex electrical circuit with different wires connecting many different regions. However, individual neurons are not physically connected to one another. There is a small space between neurons known as a synapse. The electrical signal cannot jump from one neuron to the next. So to continue the signal through the brain, the neurons communicate using chemicals that travel across the synaptic space. The first neuron releases chemical messengers, known as neurotransmitters, which attach to specific receptors on the second neuron. Before we dive into specifics of neurotransmitters, take a moment and discuss what you've learned so far. Number 1. In today's seminar, we are focusing on areas of the brain involved in the reward circuit, which is heavily involved in the process of addiction. Some areas impaired by substance use control motivation, learning, and decision-making. How did your drug use impact your motivation for using that substance? As you used more, how did your behavior change in order to facilitate using your drug of choice? How did it impact your decision-making? Before the break, we learned that neurotransmitters are chemicals that transmit signals between 2 separate neurons. There are dozens of distinct neurotransmitters that are currently known, but many are not yet well understood or have not been discovered. In the context of drug abuse, there are a few neurotransmitters that are particularly important to understand. Dopamine, arguably the most important neurotransmitter when discussing addiction, is known to play important roles in planning, coordinating, and executing movement, but is also essential for reward-seeking behaviors. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with wanting. Deficits in dopamine are known to lead to Parkinson's disease, and increases in dopamine in the prefrontal cortex is known to contribute to schizophrenia and psychosis. Addiction is tightly paired with dopamine. Drugs and behaviors that increase dopamine transmission, such as cocaine, alcohol, and heroin, have the potential to lead to addiction, while drugs that do not interfere with dopamine transmission, like hallucinogens such as LSD or painkillers like Advil or Tylenol, are not nearly as likely to lead to addiction. Endorphins are the brain's natural painkillers and act similarly to opiates, such as morphine or heroin. They can produce a euphoric feeling, think runner's high, and are associated with liking. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter involved in mood regulation, appetite, sleep, memory, and learning. Depression and anxiety are often associated with low levels of serotonin, and antidepressant medications frequently target serotonin systems. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter associated with well-being. Other well-known and important neurotransmitters include epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, glutamate, and GABA. Drugs of abuse are known to take advantage of all of these neurotransmitter systems in different ways and capacities depending on the drug of abuse. One common connection is dopamine. All addictive substances seem to alter dopamine transmission, which we will explore in more detail in the next video. Now let's put all of this in context. We'd love to hear what you think. Your group facilitator will press pause now and facilitate an open group discussion using these discussion questions. Number 1, what do you know about neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins? Can you think of healthy ways to enjoy the pleasurable effects of these chemicals that do not involve forcibly altering their levels with drugs? Number 2, how did you activate the reward circuit before you started using drugs? Did using drugs alter the enjoyability of these people, places, or things that used to bring you joy? With that, we conclude our seminar on an introduction to neuroscience. We discussed the parts of the brain associated with reward and drug abuse, how the brain communicates, and different types of neurotransmitters associated with drugs of abuse, such as dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin. Next time, we will learn about how common drugs of abuse interfere with this normal signaling. Thank you for listening to today's seminar and for your active participation. We want to encourage you to discuss any additional relevant information with your individual or group counselor. We are here to help. Be well.